Thank you so much to all of our panelists for joining us for this webinar. Let's kick it off with our first question. For the panelists, we'll start off in order. I'm going to call on you guys and then get into a more organic flow as we go through our list of questions today. So to start, my first question, which I will have Devin answer first. Broadly speaking, why should people care about data-related certifications?
Thanks, Nicole. Hi, everyone. I look at it as how we have these various different grades of data. You have raw data coming in, which is just like facts, and then you add more context to that and becomes information, and then you add more relationships and more additional context, and that becomes knowledge. When you start applying, that becomes wisdom. That's the gradation of data from raw data to information to knowledge to wisdom. And so I think data certification, what they do is guarantee that you have taken the raw facts and information that you might have learned in your school or while preparing for these certifications, that you've assimilated that information and created a body of knowledge that you can then say, this data domains I'm knowledgeable about. That really helps you in getting a foot into the door or be able to advance in your career, and where you can then apply that to really gather wisdom and become wise in that particular data area. I think that's the gradation, that's the significance of data certifications, is guarantee and show that this body of knowledge really well that you can apply.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your response, Devin. I think that was very comprehensive. And we'll go next to Hugo. As a reminder, question is, why do you think people should care about data-related certifications?
Yeah, certification helps people in the industry to show the skills and the ability to pass from the theory to the practice and solve problems that have value for the organizations.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Tiankai?
Yeah, I think with certifications, it's a little bit of two sides for me. One is to always learn and never stop learning because the space is evolving so quickly. And while you're learning, why not get certified anyway, right? That's kind of my logic, because then you might as well show it with a badge that you've learned it and that you're able to confidently reflect on the knowledge that you have gained. And the other side of it is, of course, that the talent market, as well as how the job market is looking like, is very weird, right? And the ability to learn and to show that you are able to get certified in different areas in the data space. Might it be more conceptual? Might it be more technical? It might be more tool specific, more tool agnostic. All of these things, I think, are also an indicator that you are able to showcase that you are able to get familiar with different concepts and different environments. And that itself is a skill that I think, especially in the age of AI, is very important.
Yeah. Okay. Great points there. I really love what you said about the value of continuous learning and also the idea that while you're learning, you might as well get proof or specific certification that shows that you have that knowledge. And yeah, and it is particularly relevant now. Definitely agree. We will go next to Mark for your answer around why people should care about data related certifications.
Geez, everybody had such great answers. I just want to say ditto. I really like Young Kai's point about lifelong learning. I think that really speaks to and shows that you have a dedication to lifelong learning if you've got a certification in addition to everything that you do in the real world. Back in ye olden days, when I was a hiring manager, I would put on job descriptions a certification like CDMP or CDP or pick one is preferred. And I would give a leg up to candidates who had that on their resume when it came time to pick ones to interview. So as a hiring manager, I used it. I do see it out in the wild as well. And I do think it gives you a leg up and getting a foot in the door and potentially getting an interview, especially in these times. We heard the job market is weird and people are trying to do lots of new stuff. I like to tell folks it really does show and demonstrate that not only do you know these topics, but you can apply them, that you can walk the walk and talk the talk. So that's my 2 cents on the matter.
Fabulous. All right. Well, thank you so much, all of our panelists, for your thoughtful responses to that first question. I want to niche down a little bit. So for anybody who's not aware of the specific certifications that each of the panelists are kind of representing for us today, that's going to be my next set of questions, and then we'll go back to the open-ended questions. So first, now that we have gotten the why people should care out of the way, I'm going to have each of our panelists tell us a bit about their specific certification, starting with Mark. So we'll go in reverse order this time.
Excellent. Yeah, so I'm representing the Applied Data Governance Practitioner certification that we just launched. And really, when we were looking at various training offerings around the planet, and we wanted to really add to the data governance space some high quality courseware. But we didn't just want to do high quality courseware. We really wanted to give participants some applied knowledge, something that they could take away and implement in their organization. And we didn't just want to have a certificate of completion or some CEUs attached to it. We wanted to put the rigor together to make it a true certification, just to give it that extra heft. So we looked at the marketplace and we said, everything out there is great. Like the CDMP is excellent. We're dedicated to the CDMP as well, as is, I think, pretty much everybody on this call. But we really wanted a yes and. Yes, I've got my CDMP, but I've also got this applied data governance certification as well. So I'm walking the walk. I'm building data governance programs. I know the fundamentals. I know how to apply it to business. And that was really exciting to bring to the marketplace. And that's what we did with the ADG.
All right. Thank you so much. I'll have some more questions about that. Okay. So next to Young Kai.
I'm representing the Enterprise Architecture Open Group TOGAF certification. And disclaimer, I'm not as advanced in it as the others are in their respective ones. I did the first one, the entry one. The reason why I wanted to really get that certificate or learn more about it was because I realized that in data governance and data management, you have to work a lot with data architecture, right? And then quickly you get into that enterprise architecture space. And I always learned from practitioners bits and pieces, but never understood the big picture and why we either were getting along or not getting along in many aspects. And I never knew why. So I understood that many of them were basically following the book of TOGAF and kind of the principles of enterprise architecture. So I wanted to learn more about it. And it actually turned out to be very useful, right? So it was really about why they think in a certain process and why all of these things are connected. Especially also then realizing that there's a big kind of connection where data and information architecture is one part of the learnings in TOGAF as well. That was the link for me to CDMP, for example, and how that is connected. Since in the DIM book, it was also anyway linked to the TOGAF framework as well.
That's right.
So in a way, it opened up the bigger picture for me, but also I got much deeper into enterprise architecture and I was able to collaborate with enterprise architecture professionals much better afterwards.
Yes, that is a fantastic answer. And from the standpoint of this session, I think it's just fine that you have the base level of the TOGAF certification because I think for all certifications, the majority of practitioners will get just the base level. So you can kind of represent that viewpoint for us for the TOGAF. I think it's cool that you clearly have a diversity of interests, and that is certainly reflected in your credentials. Yeah, thanks for calling that out. Okay, so now we will go to Hugo.
I represent the CAP certification. CAP is a certification from Informs. I choose the CAP because very aligned with my job. I was working first as a data scientist, then was director data scientist, and then director of business analyst for a company in Colombia. I just looking for a national certification. I feel that the CAP is very holistic certification that covers all the process from the beginning, from problem definition, then the analytics problem definition, data, methodologies, model building, deployment, and then monitoring the results. So it's a very comprehensive process. I consider that it needs strong knowledge and skills to show that I can lead projects very complex and add value to the organization. For that reason, I picked up that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And just to build on that a little bit, I think Inform's analytics framework on which the CAP is based is very underleveraged. So I think it's really helpful, but it's not as well known as I think we've all mentioned the CDMP and how that's the gold standard for data management. So for anybody who is struggling to run an analytics project, it can feel like herding cats sometimes. And I definitely feel that Informs has nailed an approach to managing those projects that I think is very practical. So I would encourage anyone who is in that space to sort of look into whether it's the CAP certification or just learning about the framework. I think it is very helpful. So anyway, thank you very much, Hugo, for sharing your experience. And like I said in the intro, you have, I guess maybe this was in the behind the scenes, but you have both the new CAP X as well as the older original CAP certification. So we will have you touch on in a bit how it's kind of changed a little. But anyway, thank you very much for your answer and for letting me sort of riff and build off of that. All right, so finally we will go to Devin, and you could talk a bit about what the CDMP is.
Yeah, thanks, Cole. So CDMP is basically the certification for data management professionals, and it's, as you said, it's a gold standard for data management, and it is a more generalized way of looking at all the various different data domains, all the way from architecture, governance, data management, and gives you this feeling of completeness of this data space. My approach to it or my entry into it has been the opposite of a lot of other people because I was a data engineer for a long time and then became a data warehouse consultant, and then became an enterprise data architect. So I learned a lot about enterprise architecture. So I had all this information and then decided to take this generalized CDMP data management course and see, which then basically said, okay, not only do I have the industry experience and the working knowledge, but I also have this formal knowledge in CDMP. I think CDMP is a great certification to take just because it gives you that, I say this again and again, that completeness where you say, I know this body of knowledge, and from here I can build on it in any which way. Like I can become a data governance professional. I can get into master data management. I can learn how to develop. I can do what like Tanka did, start diving into enterprise architecture as a result of this knowledge. So it's a good baseline. And then you can take the specializations. I took a specialization in master data management, data modeling, and governance. And you can really hone in on a certain aspect of it. But as a general certification, it is awesome, I think.
Okay, that's great. So we're going to now talk a bit more about specifics of these certifications because I think that is the area that I'm seeing come up in the chat a little bit. We really want to address the aspects of these certifications that are most interesting to you. Okay, Devin, we're going to have you as our CDMP expert. Can you talk a bit about the specializations at data strategy professionals? We call them specialist exams. Dama kind of goes back and forth on how they refer to them. Just because I'm also in this space, let me give a little bit of a preamble. There are 7 options for these specialist exams. Can you talk, Devin, about how you selected which specialist exams you chose and why a data practitioner might be interested in eventually reaching for that practitioner or master level of the CDMP accreditation?
Thanks. That's a really interesting question. So basically, I know that I won't get them all right, but I think there's 7 certifications, as you said.
It's data governance, data modeling and design, data integration and interoperability, master data management and reference data, metadata management, data warehousing and BI, and data quality management.
Great. So those are the 7 specialist exams. And I had experience that I'd just come out of an organization where I'd built this massive master data management solution for them. And that master data management includes everything, right? Like, have to understand a lot about data modeling to be able to build a master data solution. And you also need to know about data governance because governance comes as part of data management. That was my logic for tackling and looking at these specialist exams saying, okay, I think I'm going to work on the MDM, the data governance, and the data modeling and design. So those are the 3 that I took. And again, it really depends on what's your area of interest. Also, what is out there that's of interest, like to your employer. Keep your eyes and ears open. Are you starting a new master data initiative? Is a new data governance program being stood up? And then focus on that and choose your specialist exam as a result of that.
Great. Okay. Yep. That's great advice. Thank you. All right. Well, let's go next to Hugo. My question for you, Hugo, as I foreshadowed, is going to be what's the difference between the new CAP-X? How, from your perspective, did Informs align? Like, how did they do creating the different levels of certification? And what separates a CAP-X from sort of the other levels?
Okay, last year, there is only one level of CAP certification, just one. And it was like, in my opinion, high level certification. But this year, they launched 3 levels of certification. The CAP Essentials for people that is early career practitioners. They have the CAP Professionals, mid career people that is working on these projects, and the expert level. The expert level is for people that is leading big transformation organizations or working in expanding use of artificial intelligence in the organization. So basically now they are thinking in the different people and different profiles within the career. And I think this is a really good idea. Because, for example, there is a lot of people that they are fresh from the universities, just recently graduate. They graduate from the university and get one diploma or master in business analytics or data science and don't have experience. They can apply for CAP Essentials and it's really good for starting a career. For people that wants just get the transitions for practitioners to leaders, that's good to get, for example, the certificate. So what is the difference? In terms of now, all the questions are based questions. It's 125 questions in 3 hours. So it's more hard to pass the exam, but okay, it's different.
Yeah, so I just wanted to clarify one thing that you said in your answer, Hugo. So just to reiterate, Informs has introduced now 3 levels of the CAP: the Essentials level, the Pro level, which is currently in beta, and the CAP Expert level. So when you took CAP Expert, it was in beta. I believe that they have changed the number of questions because in the beta version, they were doing a lot more test questions versus in the regular, now publicly available form of the exam, it might be just 100 questions. So that was like the original format.
Yeah, I was in the transition. I take the exam in December. It was the old one. And then the exam in January is the new exam. And it was 125. Yeah, they put some questions for testing.
So it's a bit of a challenging one. Any 3-hour exam is going to be a lot. But yeah, definitely an excellent accomplishment to get through all of that and attain the certification. So thank you for explaining. Tianka, could you talk to us a little bit about the present value of the TOGAF? I know it is very popular, but given that it was introduced in 1995, how relevant do you feel it is to addressing the challenges of the modern way that businesses are organized?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think I would always justify it's more a framework for an approach, how to identify challenges and define solutions, rather than it being like a how to in a specific time and space, right? And by that, I mean, for example, the core of it all is that architecture development framework, they call it, right? In TOGAF, where it's a 10-step plan that's a cycle, right? Of how you would ideally start implementing and then maintaining an enterprise architecture to make it work. And for example, one of the challenges there is that you always should start with the business architecture before you go into the information architecture, before you go actually into the IT architecture of it all, right? And that is, in any case, I think the right sequence to do it. And it gives you some guiding questions and tools actually how to identify and how to get deeper into these architecture types to actually make it work. Now, I think with over time, things change, technology changed, use cases changed, business structures changed, and business processes, all that has changed. But I think the approach of how you understand and how to actually implement an architecture is probably still the same. You just have different options now that you can implement. And I think to your question, why it's outdated, I think there's this big gap that was really confusing me when I was looking into certifications between like TOGAF 9 and TOGAF 10. Basically, 9 is an older version of their standard and 10 is the newer one. And it seems like that they have basically differentiated it that people that have got certified in 9 can take a bridge exam to get basically into the standard of 10. But while I was doing it, it was already 10, the new standard, so I didn't have to look into 9 anymore. So I just directly did the 10 exam, so to say. But that I think is one part of the old world versus the new world where there was probably some kind of a development and evolution of the framework that had to onboard a lot of people that got certified in the 90s and the 2000s, for example. That's my guess, at least.
Okay, thank you. That was a really good answer addressing how the certification has changed over time. The fundamental aspects of enterprise architecture principles are enduring, but they've continued to kind of grow it, even to the extent of like there being significant differences between versions. Yeah, thank you very much. That helps us hopefully to understand how the certification has grown. Okay, so Mark, there was an audience question. It was really around how the ADGP is different from the CDMP and specifically those specialist levels, the data governance specialist exam. What was kind of the intention for developing the certification and how
Well,
is it differentiated?
I might even tackle two audience questions at the same time because I see in chat here some
Brilliant.
people see that Dama Wheel is a bit outdated and has a massive gap between theory and practice. That's really what drove us to the DGP. We love the CDMP, we support the CDMP. This is really a yes and certification for us and how we position it. We really wanted somebody could take and use to apply to their work immediately. We wanted to take some of the academic ivory tower feel out of how CDMP and the DMBOK is structured and really bring that to something that's punchy and real. And so, in working with the subject matter experts that put it together, we really wanted to tackle that and make sure that there were specific, actionable, real takeaways. And just something that we heard from people over and over again. It's like, yeah, this data governance stuff, my biggest challenge is getting my boss to buy in. My biggest challenge is getting my organization to buy in. We spent a lot of time on that in that course as well. Like that's an actionable, important part of data governance. And that's what we wanted to focus on when we built the ADGP. How is this applicable? How do I take what I've learned and use it immediately? Which is like, I mean, that's always the holy grail for training, right? Like you
Yeah.
want to use what you've learned right away. But we really wanted to approach it that way. So that's kind of where I see it different than the CDMP. The fundamental and foundational and all-encompassing knowledge in the DMBOK is fantastic, but having that extra little punch and tips from experts on how to apply that in the real world is what we wanted to bring to folks. And then we split it up kind of nice. We put it into 3 micro credentials, which is fun and interesting and exciting. So you can take it in chunks. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for touching on the differences and how this is like the practical aspect of it is that was a primary focus, breaking it into the micro credentials. And yeah, and that really like incorporating the change management component, which is in the DMBOK, but is not tested on the CDMP exam. I think that is something really valuable add to the data management community. Mark, can you touch a little bit about the process of rolling out a new certification? Like, how is that going?
I won't drone on too long because we could just take the rest of the podcast. That's not fair to anybody. But my gosh. So we knew what we wanted to do. We kind of knew the steps of what was going to happen, but wow, it's a lot of work. So we partnered with a university here in Canada to help develop this and turn our dreams into realities. So we worked with Power Ed, which is the continuing education portion of the Basque University, which is a well-respected distance learning institution here in Canada. As we're kind of going through this and we're looking at building the content out, we've got so many subject matter experts herding the cats to make all of that work and put together something like this. You need a box. So we have the ADG box, which you can get on Amazon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I ended up writing a ninth of that, which was a lot of work, but there's a lot of folks who put a lot of time and effort into that. Then just building the exam and how you write exam questions. And so we ended up with an exam panel and then proctoring the exam because there's so much rigor that goes around these things to make it a true certification that was challenging. So it was fascinating to see the sausage get made, which gives me a lot of appreciation for other organizations that have built these things out. So yeah, very fascinating process.
Yeah, I was going to say this is a sausage getting made conversation. So super, super interesting. I do think it must be a really significant challenge. All the work that's gone into thinking through this and also rolling it out. My next question, and this is going to be for all the panelists, so we'll go through in the original order from the beginning. Can you share an example of when a certification directly influenced your career path, whether that was through getting a promotion, transitioning your skills, or increasing your pay? And we'll start with Devin.
Wow, that's an interesting, great question. So essentially, as I said, my career has gone through several, like I was a software engineer, became a data warehouse architect and MPP architect, then became executive management, and then finally enterprise architect, and now CDMP professional. When I was switching from software engineering to data warehouse consulting, I mean, data warehousing was really new. This was like, early 2000s. And I took a DB2 database optimization certification, and that was really wonderful. Got an opportunity to go to DB2 labs in Toronto with IBM and get like hands-on work as well with them. But that it helped me advance and gain some credibility as a data warehouse consultant. So that was one. And then when I was at Salesforce, I switched from data management to enterprise architecture. I took the data architecture certification within Salesforce, and that definitely helped me understand the Salesforce ecosystem and how all of the business architecture, data architecture, technology architecture, and application architecture all integrate together and be able to build these reference architectures for big organizations. So that was definitely an advancement. And then finally, after having taken the CDMP exam, here I am on a panel discussing the virtues of a CDMP exam and teaching and training classes and boot camps on CDMP certification. So the certification that definitely lent at the right time, the right certification has helped me advance my career.
Fantastic. Thanks, Devin. We will go next to Hugo.
In the past, I remember when I took the certification PMP and helped for leading projects in industry, in cement industry. Now I just got the SAP certification at the end of last year. Helped me to get, for example, open doors in academia. I am lecturer at the university. I'm also working in strategy professional as a consultant. And so I am working for a project for a oil and gas company in Colombia, basically working in digital transformation, just because the certification demonstrate that you are able to manage a project end to end in a Meredith project. So this is really important.
Awesome. Thank you for that example. All right, next we'll go to Tiankai.
Sure. I think I have two examples. Both are very coincidental, actually, for me. So when I was doing the CDMP exam, I met coincidentally someone from the German chapter of Dharma. I'm Germany based, by the way. And so for me, that was very cool just to know that Dharma has a presence in Germany and asked me if I then wanted to be active in it and basically help with building up the community in Germany. And yeah, that led me on the journey of being active in the German chapter of Dharma. And now I'm the vice president of Dharma Germany since 2 months. So it was a very nice, I think, nonprofit career path for me to be engaged in the community. And for TOGAF, actually, that was also very funny because I basically just got certified, as one so does. You promote it on LinkedIn that you got certified on it. And I was working as a consultant already then. And then exactly when I was announcing it, a big potential client reached out that they were looking into a partner to help them with their data architecture and were wondering if I could help since they just saw my certification. It became a 1-year project that was very commercially successful for us. So
Incredible.
commercially even helped immediately.
Yeah.
Or also not only as a project for me, but also within my own company to be recognized that certifications can help. So yeah, it went really well both times.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's like direct connection to business development. That's pretty awesome. Doesn't get much better than that. Mark, how about for you?
I really love Tian Kai's answer. I could give the same answer as everybody else who did this. As a hiring manager, I would have like CDMP as part of a progression path. And then I've promoted folks who've got their certification. I coached people through getting their certification only to lose them as an employee, but I feel like I've succeeded as a manager when that happens. Somebody's found a better opportunity because I've given them a leg up and encouraged them to learn. So there's that aspect to it. But I want to go back to Tian Kai's answer because that aspect of community, which is especially true with CDMP, but all of us in the data management space, we learn so much from each other. We do events like this, and thank you again for hosting, but it really brings us together. We learn from each other, and having that shared experience of taking a hard exam is a wonderful icebreaker to have with somebody. You both have your
True.
CDMP. That exam was heck, wasn't it? Yeah, it sure was. And yeah, and then going to a DAMA chapter or going to a conference and having that shared experience and that shared language that you learn from a certification and building out that community and networking with folks in a different way than you would normally. So a bit of a weird answer, but I really do value every single data management community out there, especially the local DAMA chapters and groups like this, and just wherever data folks are hanging out talking data.
Nice. Yeah, I love that answer. I strongly agree that the shared language is a really important selling point for the certifications, especially with data, because it is by virtue of what it is, it's very abstract. We're working at different levels of detail and various levels of abstraction. So having a shared language for how we work with data and what different teams are doing so that they can coordinate using the same vocabulary, that's a big plus, I think, in terms of why the certifications and the training that goes into them is really important for the industry. So yeah, so definitely wanted to +1 on Mark's answer. And for those that aren't reading the chat, Tian, could you just want to voice over your comment? I think that's really very funny. Yeah, he says, I always feel like the data community meetings quickly turn into group therapy, but everyone feels better afterwards.
Yeah, it's true, right? You always find something to complain about, and everyone thinks, yes, I'm going through the same. And then everyone bonds about having the same problems. And then you don't feel alone anymore. And that's what community is all about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Next question for the panel. We're going to do the reverse order this time, starting with Mark. So for those new to the data field, can certifications serve as a viable entry point, or are certifications most useful for mid to late career professionals?
Yes. We'll say yes to
Moving
both.
on. No.
Yeah, like the CDMP fundamentals does a great job bringing somebody in. That material can be so thick in some spots, especially when you're looking at data modeling. And us data modelers like to do things like composite keys and subtype abstraction and junk dimensions. And we get into
Yep.
all of these goofy technical terms, which are quite a bit advanced. But you see some of these certifications and the fundamentals for CDMP does a good job of raising people up. But the ADG as well spends a lot of time on connecting to business and using real language and real life experience. And I think there's value on both sides. You can enhance your skills, sharpen the saw, as they say in the Franklin Covey world, and you can bring yourself to a new area of learning. And so I think it's quite reasonable to upskill into becoming a data management professional by training on a certification. But it's as a data management professional, it's always good to engage in lifelong learning and then show that you care. We said earlier, having those letters behind your name shows that dedication to lifelong learning.
Absolutely, it does. Yeah, it shows that you're the kind of person who is interested in improving their knowledge and skills and building community, right? So, yeah, great point. All right, going to Tian Kai next. And the question is, do you think certifications are better suited to those that are new to the field or for mid to late career professionals?
Yeah, I think for certifications, maybe just for context, for me, it was always an accelerated way to gain quickly an overview of a new area that I wasn't as familiar with, right? And assuming that this might be the objective for many that want to get certified, that is valid in any stage in your career, right? So either you just get started and you want to get a picture of something, you might be someone who's just kind of pivoting into a different aspect of it. you still want to gain a new perspective on it, or you just want to refresh your knowledge and see a different point of view on things and how it fits together. Either way, it always fits. I think it really is up to you to reflect on what you want to do right now, right? And if gaining a bigger picture and getting a new point of view, basically, on a few topics might help you right now to just find your footing again or orientate yourself in a new direction. I think it's a good point to do it in any case, as long as it helps you in whatever you want to do next.
Yeah, I think that's a valuable contribution as well in terms of furthering one's worldview and broadening perspectives. So thank you. Hugo, we will go next to you.
I mentioned that informs have essentials for every career people. So people that is just finishing career business analytics, they can apply for that essentials. So people that is just have a long career want to advance a leadership and apply for that. So it depends. It depends what is the moment of the person in the career. In my opinion, it's valuable anyway. Even forget the first job, it's an asset to get the certification.
Yeah, awesome. All right. And finally, we will go to Devin with this question.
I'll concur with everyone and say yes. I think these certifications are valuable at any stage. However, it really also depends on things like the industry that you are in and the type of certification itself, the job description, which job are you applying for, and also your organization's needs, right? So the industry, if you're in a highly regulated industry like financial services or healthcare and all, then certain certifications, CIPP, data protection certification, or AIGP, or advanced governance protections, they would be valuable and you could hit the ground running. If you have these certifications and you're going into these kind of verticals, industry verticals, the type of certification is general broad certification like CDMP, it's never going to hurt you. It's definitely going to be valuable at every level. And then what does the organization need? Are they looking for certified professionals to become a data steward? The new organization, for example. And then ultimately, I feel like nothing beats on-the-job training. I think like a degree, a college degree in something like gets you a foot in the door in a job, and then on-the-job training helps you excel at your position. And then having a certification on top of that gets you that boost to advance to the next level. So I think there's value in both get-go or during your tenure at an organization. Both of those are valuable.
Awesome. Okay, so I think this will be our final question for the panelists. And then what we're going to do, we'll go into our wrap up activity, which I'll explain with the remaining time. The final question is going to be, how do you evaluate the return on investment for a certification against the alternatives that you could pursue? For example, boot camps, graduate certificates, volunteering, building a portfolio, etc. So Devin, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so the return on investment on a certification at a personal level, first you need to understand the landscape, right? Which organization are you part of? And is this going to be worthwhile? Will this actually create opportunities for me within my organization? Or will this allow me to scale into joining another area or like another industry? So basically being able to see what opportunities do you have is going to be helping you determine the return on investment on a certification. And then do you have the aptitude and the interest in this particular field? If you do, then you will apply yourself more and your return on investment is going to be higher. And then again, finally, I always come back to the organization's need. If there is a need for this body of experience that you have as you will take this certification, then certainly the return on investment is going to be higher. You will get those promotions and opportunities as you go further in your career.
Great. All right, Hugo, what are your thoughts on this question of certifications versus alternatives?
In the case of hub certification, help you as a career accelerator, give you credibility and expand your professional network. This is important if you want to change your role from practitioner and want to start role in leadership, help you a lot.
Yeah.
My opinion is really good and value to get the certification.
Tiankai, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm thinking about what you actually invest because I think there's a difference between investing in learning all of the material that you need to learn and then paying for the actual exam, right? And I think just for me, there's a lot more going into investing the time into learning things. And usually that is not monetary a big amount. It's more about the time you want to invest in it. And depending on your existing knowledge, it might be a lot or not so much. And then just paying that additional money, I would say, on the certification itself doesn't feel that big anymore anyway, since you are confident about it. So in that way, it's always about if you have interest in learning all of the content already. And that goes back to my old answer, right? Why not get certified anyway? Because people are superficial no matter what we say, right? And if they look at a CV and can see a badge, it's just much quicker to grab it than to click on a link and see a whole portfolio of someone, what they have done in their coding or in their conceptual work. but just seeing a badge is just quicker to gain that information. I think more about if you have already invested the time to learn, then why not just get certified? And that would help you just to get more attention quicker and progress your career in a faster way.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you very much. I totally fully agree that certifications are kind of like a shorthand versus some of the other options, which are definitely can be more time intensive or more difficult for a potential like hirer to parse kind of the value of a portfolio or the alternatives that you mentioned. So thanks for that. Okay. So Mark,
Well, this is an interesting question, but I'll give a little bit of an academic answer here. As an aspiring academic, every once in a while, I like learning for learning's sake and the personal enrichment for learning. And so there's a bit of an ROI there that goes into it. But for a real answer for the audience, I think that the ROI for something like this, especially if it's driven by your organization, it shows that there's a dedication to your employees and their continuous learning. And it shows that you have an organization that cares deeply about data management, regardless of what certification you pick. There's a drive and a push there to be excellent. And you can see it from the outside and you can feel it from the inside. So I think there's a lot to be gained from employee professional development and showing that you're dedicated towards that, and the ROI there is quite high.
I love that. Talking about both the intrinsic motivation as well as the extrinsic potential rewards. I think that's an awesome way to close out the panel questions portion of this session. So thank you so much to all of our panelists for their contributions. Thank you to the audience for adding questions in the chat. I hope this answered folks' questions about the value of certifications. I definitely want to do this again. This was a lot of fun. Thank you guys again for participating, and we hope to see you for a future session.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Bye.
Thanks for coming, everyone.
Bye-bye.